want someone who's going to be an active outdoor sports hunter, fisher, man or woman, himself or herself. Someone who is indigenous to Minnesota, who understands how the DNR is the agency that affects more people in Minnesota more directly in their lives than probably any other agency of state government. Someone who will enforce the executive order that I intend to pronounce upon Governor on January 1st, that arrogance ends in that agency and every other agency of state government, that we're all elected or appointed or hired as public servants to serve the people of Minnesota. You, the taxpayers, pay the checks of everybody who serves in state government. That doesn't mean we can satisfy everybody's interests all the time, but we can be respectful and we can listen, and that will be an absolute responsibility. And it's especially crucial for the Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, because you have a broad range of interests, and sometimes they do conflict with one another or compete with one another. And I want somebody to listen. I want somebody who's going to enforce the listening and be respectful and be responsive mode all over. And I want somebody who's going to make that agency act on behalf of people. And I want a commissioner who's going to tell people, you be responsive, you have deadlines, you have responsible to people in Minnesota, and you will act in the public interest. These are the people's resources, not yours.
Some members of the Minnesota DFL party over the years have not necessarily been very friendly to firearm owners in this state. And in addition, they've opposed some hunting seasons like dove hunting and even the recently introduced season for sandhill cranes. If you become governor, how will your administration look at firearms, laws, rules, and hunting seasons like dove hunting?
Well, I strongly support the Second Amendment. I have all my life. As I said earlier, a hunter myself. I have two loaded .357 Magnum pistols in my home right now in a lockbox. I have a 9mm pistol in home. I have a 12-gauge shotgun at home. So I'm a firearm owner myself, and since I'm lawful, I have every right under the Constitution, and I will continue to support those rights for every law-abiding Minnesota citizen. I support the continuation of the hunting season and the crane season, and work with the DNR in terms of other seasons. And I support absolutely, completely the right of Minnesotans to hunt and fish. And I support the Lazard Amendment that proposed years ago that would establish the constitutional right of Minnesotans to hunt. Yeah, they should be dual listed. The DNR should have the management authority, and one of my good friends, Ely, Will Steger, had two of the dogs eaten right out front of his cabin when he was gone for a weekend by wolves. And as he said, the real danger is wolves have lost their fear of the human race, and I worry seriously that we're in danger children up in those areas, as well as certainly livestock. And a lot of the ranchers up there, understandably, find their livestock eviscerated. And I have a friend whose dog was out for a walk with a German Shepherd. I own two German Shepherds, and so I'm very sensitive to this. And this female wolf on the other side, is up in Cherry, Minnesota, was across and doing a little dance, and the dog took off. And she was the decoy, and this pack came and eviscerated the dog. So we got a serious encroachment problem here, and the DNR needs to be responsible for giving the authority to manage this, so we protect our livestock, protect our domestic animals, and protect our children.
All of you have been stressing the need for efficiency in state government. What efficiency specifically would you propose?
The duplication, triplication of jurisdictions, reporting requirements, one of the plagues on people, whether it's individuals, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's small business owners, whether it's local government school districts that are affected by state and federal regulations. And when I ran for governor 12 years ago, I proposed the second session, the even-yeared session, be what I called the unsession. Rather than adding things, the legislature would focus, along with agency heads, solely on reducing and eliminating these duplications and triplications and making this government more efficient, more responsive, setting deadlines, requiring agencies to follow those deadlines. And I will not wait till the second year. I will say the first 2 months of the legislative session, where a lot of time, frankly, is just spent taking advantage of the fact it's a long session. I want them to focus with my agency heads and concerned citizens and small business and other organizations who are afflicted by these, and say, how can we reduce, how can we streamline, how can we make more responsive, and DNR would certainly be one of those agencies.
Assure us that if any bill comes along that would rewrite those definitions on how the legacy amendment dollars are to be spent on conservation, that you will veto it?
Yes, I'll veto it.
Would you as governor support the critical walk-in access program?
Yes, I support it.
City of La Sarre Outdoor Heritage Council, the next governor will, I believe, in January or February of next year, be able to appoint 2 people to that council, and then 2 more in 2013. Can you tell us the type of people you choose? What priorities for the council would you cite when choosing members? Will they be public land advocates? Senator Dayton, when we start on this one?
Well, I've been in front of Bob Lazard for 30 years, and I will support Bob Lazard type people who understand the importance of those resources, who have supported that amendment, who would be advocates for the words that are written and passed by the people of Minnesota and who represent all parts of the state. As I said earlier, when the northernmost person on the board council right now is in Perham, which is about 182 miles from the Canadian border. Clearly that northern part of Minnesota has just been denied representation, and that's just fundamentally wrong.
Outside of the far north, about 50 of the 87 counties, and this is a question from the audience, 50 of the 87 counties have but 2% of the total area of those counties in waterfowl management areas. What are your views on acquiring wetlands in the southern part of the state under the duck recovery plan? Mr. Dayton?
Well, and as it goes again to what I said before about not opposing a one-size-fits-all to legislation. So, yes, the counties are very different. As I said earlier, used to duck and hunt down in southwestern Minnesota, down by Windham, and absolutely, we want to provide access. That's why the walk-in program is important, to provide access as well. So I will certainly support those efforts to provide access, and we also need to be responsible to counties. And if we're taking away, if we're acquiring land for public use, then there needs to be a payment in lieu of taxes kind of provision, so that property taxes don't go up for people who live in that county. I had an A rating from the NRA in 1982 and ran for the Senate. I had an A rating in 2000, and there are 2 principal votes. You can look them up. When I was a senator. One was banning cop killer bullets, and one of the reasons I have the endorsement of the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association representative is because I respect the law enforcement men and women. I was on a ride-along last week that I've been on several times with a police officer in St. Paul. Those guys wear bulletproof vests every time they go out there, men and women. And anybody wants to go out there and see them put their lives on the line to protect us. And when the police chiefs and the police officers of this state and this nation come to us and say, those bullets are made to kill us, then yeah, I'll vote to ban them. Does that prevent a law-abiding hunter or fisher, a hunter in this state from going out and hunting and fishing? Absolutely not. How many of you own cop killer bullets and use them against police officers? Raise your hand. How many of you ever fired a cop killer bullet against a police officer in this state? Raise your hand. Nobody's represented ever. Nobody. And they shouldn't ever happen. Now, I'm going to a service, I'm sure you are too, sir, next week for a deputy sheriff. This state gave his life. The Maplewood police officer gave his life. Men and women who die. And their children and their wives suffer for the rest of their lives. And if I can prevent one police officer in this state from dying through a cop killer bullet, I will do so as governor of this state. And I will at the same time support the right of every law-abiding Minnesotan to bear arms, to possess firearms, as I do, to use those for lawful purposes. And to insinuate otherwise is just untrue.